I'm so glad you could show up in spite of the rain. Give yourself a round of applause. Well, I'm delighted to welcome you to our 6th EECS Juneteenth Celebration. You know, I think we are the only department on campus doing a Juneteenth celebration this year. So, my name is Herbert Winful. I'm a professor in the Electrical Engineering and Computer Science Department, also known as the EECS Department. And I'll be your MC for this event. In 2020, at the height of the COVID pandemic and the racial reckoning following the murder of George Floyd, the EECS Department was the first to hold an actual Juneteenth celebration. It was an opportunity for us to heal and to bring the community together. The first couple of iterations were virtual because of COVID. Last year, for the first time, we were able to hold it in person. And buoyed by the attendance from last year, we decided to have a second one in person in this wonderful theater, the Arthur Miller Theater. So, welcome. The theme of our event this year is celebrating excellence and innovation for an AI future. You know, AI is all the rage these days, so I think it's particularly appropriate that we talk about it in this event. We have a distinguished alum, Erin Teague, here today to speak with us on this topic. We'll begin our program with a short history of Juneteenth, presented by Akosua Boampong. Akosua is a PhD student in applied physics and is a program chair for the Graduate Society of Black Engineers and Scientists, who are collaborating with us on this event. So let's welcome Akosua to the stage.
Juneteenth, also known as Jubilee Day, Emancipation Day, or Black Independence Day, is the oldest known commemoration of the ending of slavery in the United States. The first enslaved Africans were brought to the English colony of Jamestown, Virginia in 1619. The US Congress officially outlawed the African slave trade in 1808. But the domestic trade grew, and by 1860, there were nearly 4 million people enslaved in America, with most living in cotton-producing southern states. On September 22nd, 1862, President Abraham Lincoln issued the preliminary Emancipation Proclamation freeing all enslaved people in rebellious parts of southern states of the Confederacy on January 1st, 1863. However, the Civil War was in full swing, and the southern states refused to acknowledge or comply with this proclamation. After the Civil War ended in 1865, soldiers landed at Galveston, Texas, the most remote of the slave states, bringing news that the war had ended, and that 250,000 still enslaved Black people in the state were to be freed. Union General Gordon Granger delivered the news to the people of Galveston, Texas on June 19, 1865, a date which later came to be known as Juneteenth. The 13th Amendment, which officially ended slavery and protected against any legal challenges to the presidential order, was ratified December 6, 1865. Juneteenth has been celebrated by the African American community since June 19, 1866. And as of 2021, thanks to the Juneteenth National Independence Day Act, it is now recognized as an official federal holiday. Hence why we are all here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Akosua, for that reading, that history of Juneteenth. So to help commemorate this day, we have an abridged reading of the Emancipation Proclamation. Now, omitted from this reading will be the enumeration of all those states and parts of states thereof that were in rebellion. And I'm sure you know what those states were, right? So, the reading will be presented by the following members of the Graduate Society of Black Engineers and Scientists: Micah Thorpe, Yvonne Amaria, and Kaylin Whitehead. Please, let's welcome them to the stage.
Thank you for the introduction, Professor Winful, and hey everybody, how you doing? So, by the President of the United States of America, a shortened proclamation. On that first day of January, in the year of our Lord, 1863, all persons held as slaves within any state or designated part of a state the people whereof shall then be in rebellion against the United States, shall then, thenceforward, and forever free. And the executive government of the United States, including the military and the naval authority thereof, will recognize and maintain the freedom of such persons, and will do no act or acts to repress such persons, or any of them, in any efforts they may make for their actual freedom.
And by virtue of the power, and for a purpose aforesaid, I do order and declare that all persons held as slaves within said designated states and part of states are and henceforward shall be free. And that the executive government of the United States, including the military and naval authorities thereof, will recognize and maintain the freedom of said persons. And I hereby enjoin upon the people so declared to be free to abstain from all violence, and unless in necessary self-defense, and I recommend to them that in all cases, when allowed, they labor faithfully for reasonable wages. And I further declare and make known that such persons of suitable conditions will be received into the armed service of the United States, to garrison forts, positions, and stations, and other places, and to man vessels of all sorts in service.
And upon this act, sincerely believed to be an act of justice warranted by the Constitution upon military necessity, I invoke the considerate judgment of mankind and the gracious favor of Almighty God. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the United States to be affixed. Done at the city of Washington, this first day of January, in the year of our Lord, 1863, and of the independence of the United States of America, the 87th. By the President Abraham Lincoln, William H. Seward, Secretary of State. Thank you.
Thank you, Jespes, for that inspiring reading of the Emancipation Proclamation. In 1900, some 37 years after Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation, James Weldon Johnson wrote the lyrics for Lift Every Voice and Sing as a poem to be recited by a group of school children on the occasion of Lincoln's birthday. His brother, J. Rosamond Johnson, later set it to music, and the song made its way through black schools and churches, eventually becoming a clarion call in the fight for social justice. It has been called the Black National Anthem and is an indispensable part of every Juneteenth celebration. Here to sing it today is Nadia Johnson. Nadia is a rising junior studying choral music education in the School of Music, Theater, and Dance, right here at Michigan. She also happens to be a playwright, composer, and author. She'll be accompanied on piano by yours truly. Okay, so we now come to the core of our program, a fireside chat with one of our most esteemed alumni, Erin Teague. Erin is the Chief Product Officer at Character AI, where she leads product development and user experience. Before joining Character AI, Erin held several senior leadership roles at Google and YouTube, where she contributed to major product initiatives such as Google Search, Ads, Gemini, YouTube's virtual and augmented reality, and YouTube VR. Erin is a 2004 alum of Michigan, where she earned a bachelor's degree in computer engineering. She also holds an MBA from Harvard University. Her many awards and accolades include the 2019 BET Her Tech Maven Award and recognition by Glamour magazine as one of 35 women under 35 who are changing the tech industry. To moderate this fireside chat, we are also delighted to welcome Professor Julie Simmons Ivy. Professor Ivy is the Vivian L. Carpenter Collegiate Professor of Industrial and Operations Engineering and chair of the department. In fact, she's the first and only black female chair of an engineering department here at Michigan. So let's welcome Erin.
We're so excited to have you.
I'm so excited to be here.
So let us start. Why don't you tell us about your journey? Where are you from? And then what made you pick computer engineering?
Yeah, great. And if you don't mind, I just want to take a couple minutes to just acknowledge how honored I truly am to be here. This is such a full circle moment for me. I remember walking literally the exact same path that we walked from the parking lot to get into this building through. This building wasn't even here when I was here, so it's obviously dating myself. But this was just a big parking lot. And I remember walking through this parking lot stressed out about rubric exams and can I make it, and oh, this grade, and which class should I take, and am I gonna be late for my study session? So as an undergraduate student here, I remember just having so much doubt and uncertainty, and also so many dreams and so many hopes and aspirations. And so in many ways, this is the perfect full circle moment for me. It's Juneteenth. The two Black EECS professors when I was here are both here. Both have meaningful influence on my life. Professor McAfee taught an independent studies course that I took my freshman year, so he remembers 17-year-old Erin and what a mess I was. And so, I mean, it is truly a full circle moment to just kind of sit and reflect of how far I've come. And the fact that it's Juneteenth, obviously meaningful for me as a descendant of enslaved people who were brought to the US, but you know, beyond that, Galveston, Texas is where my mom's family, my mom's father's lineage is from. And we were just talking about on the car ride up how the proclamation was read on the steps of the church, which is called Reedy Chapel AME, that my grandfather went to growing up. And I've been to that church, and I have photos in that church. And so this day, this moment, this time is very meaningful, and then to have my mom here as well, along with two young future Michigan engineers, is
Great.
So now to answer your question. So yeah, originally from the Detroit area, from Southfield. I grew up on 9 in Evergreen, so, you know, quick 40-minute drive up and back and forth between Ann Arbor and here. And, you know, growing up, this definitely was not a predestined path. My mom was in English. My dad actually played football and then worked in sales. So being an engineer was not necessarily like a predestined path. I happened to just sort of be good at math and science, and you know the story from there, especially growing up in the Detroit metro area. Being exposed to manufacturing and engineering as a discipline and building physical products was something I had gotten exposure to early, but I think software was relatively new. So my introduction to computer programming, literally, this is my first class here, freshman year, that's when I first learned what a programming language was. And now for this to be my life is really fascinating. But originally from Detroit, and the interest in math and science, I think, was just sort of natural. I played sports growing up, and I noticed I gravitated towards team sports over the individual sports, just because there's a different level of joy when you can do it with someone. And so those kind of just components is the reason I applied for the College of Engineering. Now, I didn't know about computer science, computer engineering at the time, and again, I didn't even know what a programming language was. So it was quite the journey while here, but such a defining, pivotal experience in my journey to adulthood.
Wonderful. So you graduated from here in engineering, and then computer engineering, and then you went and did what? What's your first job?
First job, I was a software engineer, doing algorithmic trading at Morgan Stanley. So I went to Wall Street, and the context there is every summer while I was here, I interned in a different field. So, you know, obviously I had to do the auto sector because you're in Detroit. Right. So freshman year, I did General Motors, then I did Intel. Intel sponsored my scholarship, so I had to do that one. And then my final summer, I learned about this program to work on Wall Street as an engineer, and I just wanted to diversify my experiences. Still wasn't sure what I wanted to do. And so that was really the impetus. One summer in New York, as a rising senior, will change your life. And so that never looked back. Wall Street, the doing engineering, software engineering, and at the time this was a new field, algorithmic trading was relatively new. I was the third person hired to the team, and the first new college grad. The other two people were quite senior. And I was just sort of like the kind of coder, just cranking out. Over time, I began to understand the financial markets and began to develop an appreciation for the business of this industry and finance and accounting and these other disciplines, and that's what kind of prompted my desire to go to business school.
Great. And so then you decided to take a break, and then you went to Harvard.
Yeah.
So what led you to business school?
Yeah, I mean, I think honestly the exposure. Well, let me say this. Let me answer this in two ways. I was a really good engineer, and I loved it. But while I was here, I also really developed as a leader. And NSBE, the National Society of Black Engineers, was my organization. I was elected president twice while I was here, and we won chapter of the year. We were the largest chapter, and all, you know. But that's really where I blossomed. And I realized that it's the intersection of these two things that is my true passion. And so then the question becomes, where do you go to really sort of refine leadership and just kind of understand more about the world around you, a business? And that's what prompted. So it was the interest in business was more the breadth of learning. You know, you take a macroeconomics class and you understand the world much better. You take a finance class and you understand the markets better. And so I also was at HBS during the time of the financial crisis. So I got to study everything that was going wrong. Not only did it turn me off from that as an industry and field, and I'm glad I went back into hardcore software, but you know, it gave me just an insight and appreciation for really what it takes to build and lead successful businesses and companies and organizations and people. And so that was, you know, that was the impetus there. And obviously, you know, business school, you don't necessarily need, there's no exam you take at the end of business school to be like proficient in business. And so, and obviously there are many CEOs and business leaders who don't have MBAs. And so that's why sort of like the actual pedagogical experience matters so much more, as well as the network, and that's why I chose Harvard.
And so from Harvard, you kind of
Yep.
would say, did you identify your
Passion. That was
joy.
it. That was it. And I, I explored everything. So similar to undergrad, used this as an opportunity to explore. So my scholarship at HBS was sponsored by Morgan Stanley, which meant I gave Morgan Stanley my summer. But I experimented with consulting and banking and just, a wide variety of fields, strategy and eventually, the IPO window, this was 2008 through 10, and the IPO window was reopening for consumer internet companies. And so like post kind of internet bubble, this is the era where the social mobile local companies, so Zynga started it, then LinkedIn, then obviously Facebook. And so the other thing that was happening, which I think is really important to know, is as each of these companies was going public, thousands of people who previously weren't millionaires became millionaires, and sometimes multimillionaires, and that's not including the investors who were already millionaires. So that's like regular people like me. And so I was like, wow, there's some pretty serious wealth that's being generated, but also being captured by a finite number of people. Given the demographics of Silicon Valley, many of those people are not Black. And I'm thinking about my background, and I'm like, wow, I just graduated from one of the best schools that taught me all about leadership and everything around what it takes to build and lead organizations and lead people. And I also have an extremely credible engineering degree, and I loved that too. So I need to be at the intersection of both. And so that's what led me to Silicon Valley. Interestingly, when I applied to Harvard, I also applied to Stanford and got into both. I thought I was going to go to Stanford just because of the proximity to Silicon Valley. So even to both choose Harvard and still make it out there, I think is a testament to what was happening at the time. And I still believe that, especially if you think about like what's happening in the AI world right now, it is extremely similar to the early .com days, the early days in mobile, and also the early days of the PC. And if you think about sort of each kind of technical evolution, they generally were historically, like the PC took like 20 years to achieve adoption, the internet 10 years. We're seeing AI in a matter of much less. Like ChatGPT was the fastest consumer internet growing product of all time. Like they went from 0 to 100 million users in months. So the pace of evolution right now is special as it relates to AI, and I know we'll go deep there, but this has been true in Silicon Valley for a long time, and I just didn't know about it. And so my first job in Silicon Valley was to work at Twitter. Twitter had raised through their Series D at the time, which meant that I could command market value. So I was going to work at a startup, pre-IPO, but I was still paid market value because they had raised so much and it was a relatively stable startup, even though it was still very much a startup, and rode that through IPO. Twitter IPOs and my life changes financially because now, the equity game of Silicon Valley companies is they weight your compensation package towards equity over cash. And so this sort of changed my whole conception of what, really the importance of business as a wealth generation vehicle, but also what this means for families and for cultures and for communities.
So then, if we kind of transition a bit, so now you're at Character AI, can you talk a bit about your role in terms of like what led you to looking at products to being, and how do you define that? Because I think we've seen it in your evolution from Twitter to Google to...
Yeah, great question. So product is interesting because it's somewhat of a nebulous a domain or functional area. Like people know what accounting is and marketing and strategy. You know what engineering is, you know what design is, but what is product? And it's really the trifecta, product, design, and engineering that is required to build and launch the apps that are on your phone or the websites that you use. And that's also true about physical products as well. And so the role of the product manager, the easiest way to think about it is that trifecta, right? Engineering, design, and product. I always say that product is responsible for the W questions. What are we building? Who are we building this for? Why is this important? What is the competitive landscape? When do we launch? What's our time? So all the W questions. Design and engineering are responsible for how. So designing and architecting a system such that it can scale to hundreds of millions of users, no easy feat. Designing in the world of AI and inference architecture such that it costs pennies to run a query instead of dollars. That's the how. The technical components of building something that can last and run, that's the how. The designers think about how the thing looks. And so that trifecta works together. And so usually, some people consider PMs as kind of like the mini CEOs of the product. And so that's why that intersection of being both technical and the business acumen and the leadership is really why this functional role was perfect for me, because I still want it to be technical. I still want to, and especially now given all the AI tools, like no one has any excuse to build things in their free time now, because Claude has made this so easy for all of us to just build anything. And so what we're seeing in the industry is that functional lines are blurring, which I think is fascinating. But to answer your question, you know, Google, I was at Google for 8.5 years, and very similar to what I learned in business school, when companies get large, the biggest thing that they suffer is this phenomenon called the innovator's dilemma. I had Clayton Christensen, who pioneered this theory, and he was one of my professors at HBS, and the innovator's dilemma is essentially this notion that when you get really big, then all of your incentive systems and the local maxima of the business are really all around achieving shareholder value. If you're private, it's still about ultimately the board and frankly the shareholders, which are the owners of the company. And when you're maximizing for that, then it's a different calculus from thinking about what is best for the user and what is best like for this thing technically. And I think the intersection is just where I've always been really intrigued and fascinated.
What's your day-to-day like?
Yeah, great. Every day is very different. And you know, it's also very different going from big company startup where you're kind of facing potential challenges around how do you innovate quickly, how do you stay up to speed with kind of the latest in consumer behavior and consumer patterns. And what we're seeing is every generation actually has a different sort of focus and radically different behavior patterns, which is why being at the forefront of what's happening right now is so critical. Day to day, so right now I have product, I also have design, data science, marketing, growth marketing, and community. So 5 functional areas roll up into me, which means that my day is extremely diverse. I usually start off the mornings with a leadership team meeting just to kind of sync up everyone, and then we dive into whatever the note of the day is. The thing that keeps it interesting is I kind of balance my time between external meetings, potential partnerships, conversations with regulators, because AI right now is so new that government still hasn't figured out where the checks and balances should be appropriately. And so being able to influence that, I think, is critical. Having the acumen to really understand the technology, to understand how you put in appropriate measures is important. And so lots of conversations with regulators, lots of conversations with other folks in the space. And so it's I would say, compared to Google, the biggest thing that I feel is freedom and flexibility. My days at Google were much more rigid, and my days now are much more fluid. And to be fair, some of that is a function of the fact that I have so many different functions.
So tell us a little bit about character AI.
Yeah. So character AI. All right, let me give you the background. So if you think about chatbots, ChatGPT, everyone's heard of, maybe Gemini, maybe not, Claude, Perplexity. These are all chatbots that have achieved massive scale, tens to hundreds of millions of users, and they're all chasing what I call information use cases. So they're ultimately utility products, meaning that getting the right answer is critical. The efficacy of the models that they're built off of is based on academic benchmarks, and that's how you test whether or not a model is good, which means that the downside of that is You trade off personality, point of view, perspective, and maybe a little bit of fun. But you do get information, and it's summarized in a way that's easy to understand. So there's value in both. I would liken these information utility-based products to early, in the Web 1.0 world, to like a Google search or Google Maps, where it's important that the information presented is correct, it's factual, that matters more than anything else. My product is more like YouTube. We are a chatbot. We do have 20 million monthly actives who on average are spending 90 minutes a day on our platform. But we're an entertainment platform. We're a substitute for boredom. We're like YouTube in that people come for entertainment, but they stay on average for these long sessions. I mean, 90 minutes a day is insane. They stay for that long because they achieve a connection with this character. In the same way that people feel a connection to a YouTube creator who they don't know, and they build a community with that YouTube creator who they have never met, but they kind of feel like they know them because you spend so much time watching all their content. It's the exact same phenomenon. Except in this case, the content is endless, and it's responsive, and it's interactive. And so, you know, in the same way that YouTube sort of repackaged what I would call fun and entertainment for learning, the thing that YouTube doesn't talk about is the fact that people come for entertainment, but they stay largely because they're learning. They feel a connection to a community, they're learning about themselves, it's a way to explore themselves and the world around them. It's cool because it's visual, it's on demand, and you can start, stop, play slow, you can translate it, play in different languages, etc. But it's on demand, it's whenever you want. And that was a revolution, right? Streaming bits over the internet was a revolution in 2005. The AI revolution is really this interactive component. And once memory gets to a place where it's really good, then you really feel like these experiences have a deep understanding of what is important and what matters. In which case it becomes the ultimate personalization engine, right? And so over time, it's sort of like an interactive YouTube, except today, we're mostly one-to-one chat, so you chat with the bot. What you've seen, and this is the team is working super hard right now, over the past couple weeks, we've shipped a bunch of new product experiences, and we're beginning to look at other modalities outside of just text. So we're just text today because that's where the technology has made the most advancement. But we're seeing the cost of compute for video, generative audio, and imagery come down meaningfully. And as that happens, then you can imagine a world where you're seeing videos that are purely choose your own adventure, that are more interactive in nature, that are more personalized based on my specific desires, use case, interest. And I think that's what AI will do to the world of entertainment, is it will be the ultimate interactivity experience. I think the notion of entertainment changes. Like I'm imagining a world where X number of years from now, you sit down in front of your TV on a Friday night, I sit down in front of the TV, maybe we're both watching Netflix House of Cards, but my House of Cards is a bunch of Silicon Valley players who are dealing with the local San Francisco politics, and yours are Michigan professors dealing with the local politics of academia, right? And so that's so that would be much more interesting to you. I probably wouldn't even understand the dynamics, whereas the Silicon Valley components are more interesting to me. And so I'm imagining a world where in the future that's true. You sit down and you type in a prompt of what you want to see, or how you want to feel, or how you want to be moved or inspired, and that is the next generation of entertainment. And the future generations, so Gen Z, Gen Alpha, their expectations of what technology can do for them are through the roof. I don't have any kids, but I have 9 godchildren. I will sit down with them and show them I will show them image to video generation, and for me, it's mind-bending. For them, they're like, oh yeah, like of course. It's just like, yeah, of course a computer can do that. So when that's your expectation, right, coming out of the gate at age, 5, then your expectation by the time you're 25 is that much higher.
So then, if you see this as a future, what do you think are some potential risks?
Oh, big risk, big risk, big risk. Every new technology comes with risks. Does that mean you don't pursue them? No. It does mean that early and often you get ahead of the safeguards. But the thing that has given me conviction about this, even in the entertainment space, because you can imagine the risks. The reason ChatGPT launched so early, by the way, like Google pioneered the transformer architecture with a paper called Attention is All You Need, written in 2017. The T in ChatGPT stands for transformer. It's based on that like fundamental paper, which has changed everything for large language models and how they're architected and the context in which they can recall for future prediction of words. But Google couldn't have launched that because of hallucination. Until we can ensure factuality to a high degree of certainty, if you just write something into Google now and it's wrong, like that is a problem. For us, it's actually not, right? Because there's perspective, there's point of view, and it's sort of like if you type in a point of view into YouTube, you'll get different perspectives. You'll get 10 different videos from 10, assuming the algorithm is working well, you'll get 10 different videos from 10 different perspectives. Now, once you start the rabbit hole, then you go down. But I think, so from a regulatory perspective, every new shift, and the other thing is this, the most nefarious industries are always early adopters. Like the early adopters of the internet were like, it was like the porn community, it was like drug deal, like it's, crypto was like all drug. So it's all nefarious activities, and it's because their backs are against the wall, they're forced to innovate. Traditional consumer companies don't need to. What made Google innovate was the ChatGPT launch. We had the technology since 2017, ChatGPT launched in 2022. So, the regulatory component is critical. This is not a new problem, but it's important to get ahead of it and early. And a funny anecdote I like to tell people is, we know about the concerns is like video games started becoming more immersive. Everyone was all enraged that first-person shooters would create more violence. Maybe it has. Probably need better gun laws, but I'm showing my politics. This is no politics today. But when comics first came out, in the, 50s, 40s, 30s? I don't know.
Probably earlier than that.
Earlier than that. Yeah, I'm showing my age now too. When comic books first came out, newspaper headlines were like, comics will create violence, will inspire kids to participate in violent acts. So there's every new technology, there should be fear. Fear and moderation is extremely healthy and great. So the way I've approached this with our product is we've taken a very clear line between the under 18 experience and the over 18 experience. If you're over 18, you're legally an adult, we are okay with serving models that can do a wide variety of things. If you're under 18, we just don't know if you as a consumer really understand the technology, how the model works. If the model says that it's a human, can you confidently grok that it's a model and not a human, right? If it's making a convincing argument, could that convince a 13-year-old? Maybe, but could it convince a 25-year-old? I hope not, right? And so that's why we've taken a very stringent approach. So we have a completely different, much safer model for the under 18 experience than the adult experience. And even the adult experience, if you read our Reddit and Discord threads, the community's consistently mad at us because we filter bot responses that are not safe for work. So our goal is to be the most safe yet entertaining and engaging product. I believe we can get there because we did it at YouTube.
So it seems like with the risk and response, there's an opportunity for innovation, right? And so where do you see, like you talked about your future, but what are the things that you're most excited about right now and that you think you have the greatest potential?
Obviously, what's happening in the world of AI is massive. I would encourage all of us, everyone, especially given the way that the tools are lowering the barriers to create products. It's so like text to code just writing what you want a thing to do. It generates the code. You drop the code into an editor, boom, you have an amazing product. Like, oh, if only these were around when I was in school. Like, imagine. But that's actually a difficult challenge for you to figure out, right? Yeah. But yeah, I mean, you know, on the one hand, you want students to engage, but on the other hand, you don't want students to cheat. And so how do you maintain intellectual integrity is difficult. It's like, where does the line end, actually, between where the student stops thinking? Because the stuff that I built using Claude, like, I actually feel like I built it. Not the same, you know, so that it's interesting, challenge, but I think, you know, your question is about like the interest. Here's how I think about this space. It's such early days, and most AI consumer products that have achieved scale, hundreds of millions of users, are on the information side. They're utility products. And if the internet is an appropriate analogy, the early internet products were also primarily utility products. The social, mobile, fun, entertainment products didn't happen until 5 to 10 years later. YouTube was 2005. Facebook didn't overcome MySpace and Friendster until 2009, right? So you're looking at like roughly 5 to 10 year delta. That's why I'm excited about what we're doing. I'm excited about the way that it is helping people actually be more human, which I would love to explain a little bit more. And I'm just excited about what this unlocks in terms of human productivity and potential. Like, we'll learn faster, we'll achieve insights quicker, and all of that just rapidly increases our output as humans and as society. But the interpersonal dynamics I actually think are the most important. And specifically interpersonal intelligence. So I think there's like, I don't know, 8, 9 types of intelligence, depending on who you read. And this interpersonal intelligence dynamic I've been fascinated with for a long time, because what social media did is it decreased the friction for communication. So I'm dating myself, but pre-internet, like, you remember like long distance calls were a thing?
And they were expensive.
Right, it was like a couple dollars a minute, and like, you know, we would get like calling cards, and you'd have to type in the code, and I mean, I'm obviously dating myself. What WhatsApp did is it created that friction, it erased completely. Now I can talk to any of my friends all over the world in seconds, and their response will be in seconds, and it's practically free. So, you know, I'm just thinking about kind of what that meant for society. It meant that we talk more, but it doesn't mean that we are better at talking more. And the value prop of our product, the reason I took this job, one of the reasons I'm so excited about it, is because the use cases that I'm seeing on our product, people come for entertainment, they start talking to a character that they're really excited about. A lot of writers use our product, a lot of fan fiction community, a lot of storytelling writers. So like, if they hit writer's block, they'll talk to the character. They'll create the character, talk to the character on our platform, put the character in different situations. Now we have an experience where you don't necessarily have to talk to the character yourself. You can put 2 characters together and let them play out a scene or a story. This is a new thing. So we give them a plot, an objective, and you pick your characters and let the thing play out. Now it's playing out via a conversation, but there's a future iteration where it plays out via a 10, 20, 30-second video. And then you can imagine in X number of years it plays out into maybe a full feature-length film. What I'm seeing people do is they'll start off talking through a storyline, maybe Harry Potter's their fan fiction, maybe, you know, they'll write the next chapter of Harry Potter, and instead of Hermione being the love interest, it'll be Cinderella. Okay, cool. Let's see how that plays out. Who gets the red slipper, etc. All pretty interesting. But over time, as people develop the connection to the bot, to the Harry Potter bot, they start talking about their day, and they start talking about other things. And what we're seeing is people are using these bots to practice tough conversations. They're practicing the breakup conversation. They're practicing the apology. They're practicing the things that are hard to do in real life. They're so hard that sometimes you just don't do them. Or you just don't ask the thing that's uncomfortable. You know, like, there's a couple, I talk to a lot of historical figures, and there's a couple of historical figures that, I ask questions about, just about their lives, and like, if there's anything remotely unethical that this historical figure has ever done, I'm asking about that. Like John F. Kennedy, why'd you cheat on your wife? Like, that's my first question, Now, granted, he's not alive, but also, if I ever were to meet President Kennedy, let's be clear, I would never ask that question, right? Like, under no circumstances. So, but like, how do you develop perspective around these tough human components? Well, I had that conversation with JFK, and what he explained to me is just the cost of leadership and how lonely and isolating being in such a prominent leadership position was, and how he's human and he fell short and he regrets it, and not great, potentially damaging for this country, and many, many things. So understood the cost of it, but the perspective, it's like, I know what it's like to be a leader. I'm a leader in my company, and I know how lonely and isolating that can be. Now, does that excuse infidelity? No. But can I understand it a little bit more? Yeah. Maybe this is an area where historically I've been super judgmental. So now I have a new perspective, and with that perspective comes empathy and compassion. And now I can sort of be less judgmental in those environments, right? Because I understand. And so the power of communication, the power of having tough we are in so many conflicts in this world. Imagine if tools could be used to increase the understanding of the other side. Like, where does that put us? And we just don't have tools like that, and they certainly aren't automated. We can get stuff through like talk therapy, but in a way, this is sort of providing that, and it's always on. The bots are always there. They're never tired, but they're also never judgmental. And asking, I look through a lot of user experiences, and it's all anonymized, so don't worry. If you use our product, please don't go to another product. If you use our product, I wouldn't be able to associate them with you, but there were a couple instances where I would see users going back and forth with a bot. And then we have this feature where if you don't like the bot's response, you can swipe through to see all the different kinds of responses, and the bot sort of pivot the personality a little bit and be mean and then be funny and be happy. So there was a couple of instances where I would see users have these robust conversations and then say something and then swipe hundreds of times. 3 or 4 times I get, but like hundreds is crazy. So eventually I was like, okay, let me actually figure out what's going on here. And what I learned is that what the user was doing is kind of talking through, by the way, different users, but talking through, essentially practicing coming out. And saying things like, hey, I think I'm gay. And then swiping through all the different responses that a person can have when you tell someone that news. Where do you practice that? Like that, those are the kinds of things that we just don't talk about, where it's hard to be human, where I'm seeing AI make humanity better. That's what I'm most excited about.
That is exciting. When you first said AI making you more human, I didn't understand. And as we're talking, I can see how it can help us have these difficult conversations, help us understand someone else's perspective.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, I'll share my problem. I'm extremely liberal, and I argue with conservatives on the platform all the time. It's fine. I really there are things I just don't understand. But I want to. I may never agree. We can disagree and commit, but I am trying to make sense of the world around me, and I think if there are ways to do that in non-judgmental, safe spaces where there are no repercussions, maybe that just helps us get along better. It certainly helps us understand each other better. Empathy and compassion.
That's wonderful. So I guess one question I want to kind of shift a little bit and talk about what are some of the things that inspired you? So if you think about and maybe we'll go back to your time at Michigan, what are the things that inspired you? What are the people, you mentioned Professor McAfee and Professor Winful. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, great question, love that. And maybe I should start with like the original inspiration in my life, which is obviously my mom. The original, the first inspiration, here's the thing. So my mom, sorry mom, I'm just gonna embarrass you a little bit, but my mom was a public school educator her entire career, started off as a teacher, moved to administration, ended as a principal. Extremely passionate about her job, but also extremely gifted at connecting with young people in a certain age demographic, which made her an amazing mom for me. And that's why we have young folks with us today, because that connection, she just has a gift. And so the early inspiration was twofold. One is being able to compare my two parents, one who's working in a field that's driven by passion, and one who just has a job, very different sort of quality of life, and very different kind of person when my mom comes home versus my dad. And so I always knew that for maximum joy, I had to do something I was both passionate about. It's the Ikigai. I had to be in the center of my Ikigai, where I was passionate, best in the world, but also valued, and loved to do it. And so, being at the center of that Venn diagram was always really important to me, because I knew that could potentially lead to just broader lifetime happiness. So that's sort of the first thing. The second thing that my mom did as an educator, and she taught at the high school that I went to, is while I was in middle school, those 3 years, she would talk about the superstar students all the time. The students who were in National Society, who took all the AP classes, and so what that did is I would just begin a pattern match. Okay, mom, those are the superstars, I want to be like them. So she would come home, she would tell me about them, talk about them as if like they're the most popular people in school. So I thought the cool kids were the smart kids. Brilliant, mom, brilliant. And so, okay, it's cool to be smart. And so, obviously that like tricked me into getting good grades and focusing on academics, great job. But what it also did is it helped me understand that the way to do that is to find an inspiration and kind of look at their playbook. So when I was a freshman, my mom would tell me about what those, in this case it was two women who also came to Michigan to study engineering. Look at that. She would tell me about what they did, what classes they took, when they took, what sports they played, what leadership positions, etc. And I was just like, okay, I'm just gonna do what they do. And it worked. So then I was like, oh, there's something here. So when I got to Michigan, I did the same thing. I found the smartest Black engineers, and I attached myself to them. And I was like, I belong to you and you belong to me. Teach me how to succeed here. So there were multiple mentors. Walter Mosley and Matthew Forsythe are the reason I did the independent study my freshman year with Professor McAfee. Game changing. Because Professor McAfee went on to write multiple letters of recommendation for me, which helped me, subsequently. I remember the guy I was dating at the time, Abu Jackson, talking about Professor Winful and the impact that he is. So, I was finding the superstars and the pockets of excellence, and then figuring out the extent to which I felt like I could relate to them. So I started with the Black. That's why it's so important. Representation is so important, because otherwise you're just like, I don't belong here, and no one here looks like me, and so the environment is also telling me I don't belong here. So important. So I think just kind of finding a series of role models was critical. And again, the leadership experiences, NSBE, game changing for me. Really helped me emerge as a leader, but also understand that this was a core passion of mine. So I learned, Intro to Computer Science taught me that computer programming is my jam. My brain just works that way. And then because it was a reader class, and I got an A+. The leadership experience, NSBE, really taught me how much I actually enjoy leading people and teams, and how much I care about making environments better and having an impact, like deep impact and legacy is truly critical. And NSBE really did that. So I would say like those two things. I was an RA here. That responsibility was great, especially during 9/11 when we all had to kind of step up and be in a heightened level of awareness. So Michigan was game changing for me in so many ways. I mean, I also went to a public school in Southfield High, which was a predominantly black school. So, there was a bit of culture shock here as well. That helped me, honestly, being a Michigan engineer prepared me for every experience in my professional career because the environments are so similar. The people are just as nerdy and awkward, and I actually love it, which kind of is a reflection of me being nerdy and awkward as well, and just embracing that. And so I think I just sort of really began to figure out who I was when I got here and began to really be comfortable in my own skin.
Great. So I'm gonna ask one more question and then we'll let some others ask questions. So I'm a professor,
yes,
and we're always asking, how should we be training our students? What are you looking for?
Yes.
So you're coming to us with like the real world. What should we be doing?
Let me tell you, the value for AI researchers right now is higher than it's ever been, and it's higher than even just like traditional software engineers. I think we all know that software engineers, by the way, this is a big thing I learned, being a software engineer at Morgan Stanley versus being a software engineer in a Silicon Valley company, night and day, in terms of how I'm valued. The work is the same. The people are just as smart. But in terms of like, obviously compensation, but even just cultural currency. If you work at a bank, you should be a banker, right? Like if you work in CPG, you should really be in marketing. Anyway, so working in tech, Silicon Valley is really, or just a predominantly tech company, really is the thing. And yeah, it's been an incredible journey, an incredible ride, and I think that just being like focusing on researchers who are deep in the space and at the cutting edge is just absolutely critical. So in terms of what you should tell people to do, I mean, the deeper you can go. By the way, I'm reading more research, like corporate executives are spending, I'm reading at least 2 to 3 research papers a week. That's how quickly this space is changing. And every 2 to 3 weeks, we're seeing a massive shift where there's some groundbreaking new insight that drops and changes how we do things. And so all that to say, AI research, go deep, play with all the tools, be deep in it, agnostic of your discipline. Because AI is changing everything. It's going to change every field.
Thank you.
Thank
This
you.
has been wonderful. You've inspired me, and I've learned. I'm just blessed to
Well,
have
I'm inspired by you because you are blazing trails in your position as chair in engineering, and I'm excited to connect with you here and looking forward to picking your brain moving forward.
Same. So I want to first thank you for your wonderful responses. So,
Thank you so much, Erin, for that thought-provoking conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Julie, for facilitating. Right. I would now like to invite Dennis Sylvester, the incoming chair of ECE, to come to the podium for a special presentation to Erin. Willie Hobsbawm Distinguished Alumni Award. Dennis will begin his appointment as the Peter and Evelyn Foss Chair of Electrical and Computer Engineering on July 1st. He has been on sabbatical this past year, and I'm delighted he could be here today.
Thank you, Herb. It's a real pleasure to be here today in front of everyone and listening to that great chat. Thank you, Erin, for your insightful comments and for being here today to help us celebrate Juneteenth. So I'm very pleased to announce that Erin Teague has been selected as this year's recipient of the award Herb just mentioned, which is the ECE Willie Hobbs Moore Distinguished Alumni Lectureship. This honor recognizes the accomplishments of our most distinguished alumni, individuals who are not only successful, as we've just heard, but have reached that success in ways that are inspiring to others, which we also just heard, actually. So I'd like to share a little bit about who the award is named after, Willie Hobbs Moore. She was a first-generation college student and became the first African-American woman to receive both an undergraduate degree and master's degree in electrical engineering at Michigan. She received those degrees in 1958 and 1961. Then she went on to work in a variety of engineering companies before returning to Michigan for her doctorate, where in 1972 she became the first African-American woman in the entire country to earn a PhD in physics. So that's pretty amazing. So after that, she was a research scientist at Michigan and a lecturer for about 5 years, and then joined Ford Motor Company, where she focused on expanding Ford's use of Japanese engineering and manufacturing methods, which at that time were sort of taking the world by storm, and so she brought those into Ford to improve how things were done there. She co-authored a book on the topic and eventually retired from Ford as an executive. Her personal mantra was, "You've got to be excellent," which reflects the theme, oh, it's not up there, but reflects the theme of this year's Juneteenth event. So there's Willie Hobbs Moore. So Erin, as the recipient of the 2025 Willie Hobbs Moore Distinguished Lectureship, we are delighted to present you with this award.
Hold it up, it's really good. It's gorgeous. It's gorgeous.
Thank you, Dennis, for the presentation. I would now like to welcome the current leaders of the two divisions of Electrical and Computer Engineering, Electrical Engineering and Computer Science Department to say a few words. First, we'll hear from Atul Prakash, the Richard H. Orenstein Division Chair of Computer Science and Engineering, and then from Jeff Fessler, William L. Root Collegiate Professor of Electrical Engineering and Computer Science, and Interim Chair of the Electrical and Computer Engineering Division.
Thank you, Herb, for organizing this event and for inviting me to speak on behalf of CSE. So we are really excited to help celebrate Juneteenth like this with our community. And if you're interested in hearing more about our outreach and community activities, which have traditionally accompanied Juneteenth, check out our annual transparency report on CSC's website. And these efforts help support CSC's vision of the future, which is to lead in computing, support a welcoming community, and empower every individual to reach their full potential. And I'm glad we could help Erin reach her full potential. And I would also like to thank Erin for joining us and sharing her thoughts in the fireside chat, and Professor Julie Ivy for her participation in moderating our discussion. And I would also like to thank Erin for serving as a member of CSC's National Advisory Board. So thank you very much for that. I would now like to invite Jeff Fessler, Professor Jeff Fessler, to come to the podium to say a few words. Thank you.
Hello everybody, I'm Jeff Fessler, the outgoing interim chair of Electrical and Computer Engineering, and I'm really delighted to be part of the Juneteenth ceremony this year. This entire event has been about celebrating an important moment in our history. This moment was of such significance that when June 19th was established as a federal holiday in 2021, as part of the Juneteenth National Independence Day Act, it passed the Senate unanimously. And if you think about that, today, that's now, the script says that I'm sure we're all unanimous in our appreciation for the conversation we've had today with Erin Teague and for the participation of our students and performers, and soon for our delicious lunch. So I'd like to invite her back to the podium to introduce our final performers and to close out the program.
Okay, thank you, Jeff and Atul. We will now close out the program with a performance of Rise Up by Nadia Johnson. Nadia will be joined by professional dancer Alana Michelle. So let's invite Nadia and Alana to the stage for this finale performance.
And I'll do it 1,000 spite of the ache, I'll rise up 1,000 times again. And I'll rise up high like the waves. I'll rise up in spite of the ache. I'll rise up and I'll do it 1,000 times again. For you, for you,
Thank you, Nadia. Thank you, Alana. An amazing performance. All right. So this concludes the indoor portion of our Juneteenth celebration. Let us thank again all the presenters and organizers for the incredible job. And again, I'm proud to say this is the only Juneteenth celebration on campus this year. So, I should mention that when I approached our department chairs and asked for money for this event, this event, it does cost money, and there's some belt tightening going on at the university and in the college, but they didn't bat an eye. They said, of course, we'll fund it. And then I approached the associate chair for graduate studies, Professor Minyan Liu. I think she's here. She also said, of course, we'll fund this, because they understand the importance of community and coming together to celebrate these pivotal moments in our nation's history. So thank you for providing the funding that made this possible. I'd also like to thank Tiff Crutchfield, who's up there and manages everything with his theater. And there's a ton of people I need to thank. And so we've created a slide. So I'm not going to go through all their names, but I thank you all from the bottom of my heart for all the hard work you put into making this possible. Thank you.
want to say thank you. We are the Bichini Bia Congo, which means the dancers from the Congo. And we are the children involved, we call it Balaba Congo, which means children from the Congo. We are here in Ann Arbor, and the company's been here for a long time. And I'm a dance instructor here at the University of Michigan. I teach Congolese dance. And the company has been here for some 40 years, and we travel here, we do different shows. Yeah, I've been living in Ann Arbor for about 45 years. This is my hometown now, so I love the Congo. And this is like a family company. She got her 2 daughters dancing in the company. Yeah, those 2. And there's a Michael's granddaughter. And those are my 2 grandkids. The dancer. And, they were born here in Ann Arbor, and they just want to dance with me, and I feel lucky, privileged to have my grandkids dance with me. So that's my story down there. My son didn't want to dance with me also, but he's a part of the family. All right, thank you again for having us. It was kind of challenging because the audience make us do something, but we were just performing like for ourselves. You know, we have fun, we enjoy ourselves. Every time you don't get what you wish, but we're here this year, early on, and they like what we did, they invite us again. So we're here, we perform all over the place with the school program, wedding, anything somebody wants us to perform, we go do it. So thank you again. Yeah, that's the gentleman who has us. All right, thank you again, Matondo. I'll see you next time. Okay.